Hey, what's going on everybody? It's Brandon and welcome back to Marotta Media. So I know I've been gone for a little while. I've been really busy lately. I know I've used that excuse a lot in past videos, but I really have been. But even though I've been busy, I have been watching a lot of movies lately, and some of them I may be a little bit late on, but I still want to talk about them. And so today I'm going to be talking about one of my most anticipated movies of 2021, The Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad is the latest entry in the DC Extended Universe, and it's also a somewhat sequel, somewhat not, to the 2016 Suicide Squad. But either way, the 2016 Suicide Squad was a movie that was not well received by pretty much everybody. I, on the other hand, did not hate that movie. That's not me saying it was great, because it had a flurry of issues, but I didn't think it was terrible. It was just painfully mediocre. And I guess this could also be categorized as a sequel to Birds of Prey, the Harley Quinn movie that came out last year. A movie that I absolutely hated. I don't know, that movie it was very obnoxious to me. It was very obnoxious, boring, horribly written, and yeah, I didn't like it at all. But that's definitely going to be an unpopular opinion. I mean, it already is. I was pretty open with that on my worst movies of 2020 list because I included that movie, but you know. So this Suicide Squad kind of follows the same beats as the one from 2016, but the plot is somewhat the same. Amanda Waller, whose role is reprised by Viola Davis, gathers a group of ragtag supervillains together to complete a dangerous mission. In this case, the Suicide Squad must go to the South American island of Corto Maltese to stop something called Project Starfish. And that's pretty much the gist of it. It's a very simple plot and nothing really to it, but I admire that about it. But easily the best thing that this movie has over the 2016 Suicide Squad is its characters. You have some of the same people returning from 2016 Suicide Squad like Harley Quinn, Rick Flag, and even Captain Boomerang. And as I said, Amanda Waller is back as well. But we're also introduced to these new characters that are very interesting in their own right. Some of these villains I've also never even heard of before, like Javelin, TDK, King Shark, Bloodsport, Polka Dot Man. And all of the actors who play these characters fit the roles so well. I'm not kidding, this might be the first movie I've ever seen John Cena in where I actually thought, wow, he did a really good job with this. That's nothing against John Cena, I've just seen him in a lot of really, really bad movies. One of them came out earlier this year. But it sucks because the characters are so enjoyable and you really love being around them, but at the same time you know that you can't get too attached to them. Because let me tell you, nobody in this movie is safe from dying. And that's something that is drastically improved in this version over the 2016 Suicide Squad. Because in that movie, I remember not many people died. I believe only Slipknot, Diablo, and Enchantress died. Those are the only ones I can remember, at least. But what makes these characters so interesting is that we actually learn about them and their backstories as we go along this journey. Now, even though in many aspects King Shark was the absolute star of the show, I was personally more attached to Ratcatcher 2 and Polka Dot Man. Their backstories I found genuinely touching and heartbreaking, and Polka Dot Man's actually leads to some pretty hilarious moments along the way. But this movie is absolutely hilarious. The banter between them is just comedic gold in my opinion. Now, I won't give away too much, but there is one specific scene where Bloodsport, played by Idris Elba, and Peacemaker, played by John Cena, are having a little competition. If you've seen the movie, you absolutely know what I'm talking about. But this competition in its own right is hilarious, but the payoff was just absolutely hysterical. And it was so funny not just because it was so well done, but because it was just so awkward and you're just sitting there like, oh no, they didn't really do that, did they? And even though this movie is really funny in parts, it's also very oddly emotional as well. There's a scene where a few of them are riding on this bus. It appears in the trailer and Bloodsport tells Ratcatcher, we're gonna get you out of here alive. And she tells him, no, we're gonna get you out of here alive. But that whole scene in itself was just magnificent. We find out more about each of them, and it was just a very touching heart-to-heart moment between a team of these people who don't really know a whole lot about each other, but they care about one another. Now, I will not give away who dies in this movie, but you genuinely feel sadness when one of them dies because you grow attached to them, even though I told myself I wasn't going to do that. Because as I mentioned, none of them are safe along this mission, but I found that to be so refreshing because there are actual stakes to this mission. You feel like the characters are actually in danger here. And that's saying a lot, unlike some other movies that I've seen this year. But make no mistake, this is not your average comic book movie, because this movie is bloody. There are several people who get decapitated and die in other horrific ways, and the violence in some cases is just absolutely absurd, but the beauty of it is that it knows it's absurd. It doesn't take itself seriously at all. It just tries to have fun with it. Unlike another movie I've seen this year that was very absurd but took itself way too seriously. Okay, I'm done shitting all over that movie now, so let's move on. You know this movie doesn't take itself too seriously because, for God's sake, there's a giant starfish in here. A giant starfish. Like, how ridiculous can you get? Now, I've heard criticism from a few people, like my mom, my stepdad as well, and a few friends. They said they did not like this movie at all because there was no story. And I hate to call those people out, but they are absolutely incorrect in this case, because this movie does have a story. But like I mentioned, this movie's story is just so simple, but that's what I loved about it. It doesn't try to be anything that it isn't, it just wants to tell a simple superhero supervillain story. But this is more of a movie about the characters. It's not really about the story itself, and I loved that about it, because these characters are great. Now, when I watch a movie, I like to take notes about it in my head when I'm watching it, because when I'm in a theater, you know, I don't want to be on my phone. But I like to take notes during movies. I mean, obviously, I make video reviews on YouTube. But when I was watching The Suicide Squad, I wasn't worried about remembering anything at all, because I was just so entertained. And that was such a refreshing feeling, because I feel I need to remember certain things about movies in order to give my full thoughts on it, but I was just so in the moment with this thing, and it really made me feel good. That's precisely why we go to movies, to be captivated by them, and to feel like we're a part of this world with the characters that we have fallen in love with. But yeah, this movie was just beyond entertaining, because it all leads up to an absolutely incredible third act. So much action, so much at stake, and there is even a certain conflict that comes up in the third act that I wasn't expecting at all, but thought it worked so well. But that being said, The Suicide Squad is not perfect, and there were a few tiny things that bothered me. This movie is over 2 hours long, but the pacing is very, very quick, because it didn't feel like 2 hours. Part of that may be the fact that I was enjoying myself so much, but it wastes absolutely no time getting you into the action. The very first shot is Savant, played by Michael Rooker, just sitting in this cell bouncing a ball around. And immediately Amanda Waller comes in and says, like, all right, let's get ready for this mission. And you're just like, okay, wow, we're already there? And I did appreciate that to an extent, but at the same time I was like, okay, like, can we get some exposition first, though? And something else that bugged me is that there was this side story involving a woman named Sol Soria. And Sol Soria is the leader of this resistance group who's looking to overthrow the government of Corto Maltese. And that's one of, like, the side stories that we follow occasionally, but I feel enough time wasn't really put into it. I think it could have been a lot more interesting if they found more ways to intertwine both the Suicide Squad and the Rebel story together. But I know this is a Suicide Squad movie, and the focus shouldn't be on the Rebels and their resistance. It should be on the Suicide Squad. So it did that great, but I feel it could have been a little bit more interesting. But other than that, I don't have any complaints with this movie, because it's fucking fantastic. It improves on the first Suicide Squad in every single way. Better characters, much better action, and just an overall more captivating story and journey. That being said, I do hope to see a director's cut that David Ayer claims to exist of Suicide Squad, kind of like what they did with the Snyder Cut for Justice League. But the Suicide Squad is what you get when studios let talented directors like James Gunn have full creative freedom over their vision. And to James Gunn, all I have to say is this.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
And overall, I would give the Suicide Squad a 9 out of 10. I cannot wait to own this movie on 4K and Blu-ray in a few months, and I will display it on my shelf back here once I do, because this movie will absolutely be making an appearance on my end of the year list. But thank you so much everyone for watching my review of The Suicide Squad. What did you guys think of this movie? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was better than the 2016 Suicide Squad? If you didn't, then let me know. I would love to know why. If you guys like this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up, and do not forget to subscribe. If you guys want to see my past reviews, then I will link those right over here. Other than that, I hope you all have a tremendous rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.